Today on Encore, the musician keeping a centuries-old tradition alive through the very act of breaking it. British Gambian artist Sona Jobarteh plays the Kora. The West African instrument has been the preserve of men since the 13th century, passed down from father to son in a special set of families in West Africa for hundreds of years. That was until Sona became determined to change things. She plays the string instrument now for audiences across Europe, Africa and the United States, where she'll be touring next year. Sona has a new album and she's in Paris to perform this week at the Afrocolor Festival. Sona, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. Now, the Kora dates back to the Mali Empire of the 1200s. Your grandfather and father both played it. Women in griot families were singers. Only men were allowed to play the instruments. Until you, why did you want to play?
Actually, I came to play because my elder brother started to teach me when I was very young. So in that way, I didn't decide myself. This was his decision. But what's significant is obviously my interest as I got older. This was still something that I really wanted to pursue professionally. And it's something that I decided to pursue with my father when I was a bit older, when I was in my teens, to really focus all my attention on doing this and this for me to be my career.
And did you feel like you were breaking tradition when you decided to play, when it had always been men before?
In some way, but I think when you grow with something, you don't perhaps analyze it in the same way, but you do become very accustomed to the differences that you experience as a female as opposed to a male. So, for example, performing and studying rather this instrument for me was something that came much later. I wasn't able to do until I was in my 20s because the society, there wasn't that kind of backdrop which I felt that I could do that.
But you did train in music. As the daughter of a Gambian father and a British mother, you started the Kora at 3, as you said. Your brother taught you, but you studied classical music in London, a very prestigious music school. You did the cello, you played the cello. Did that feel very far away from your African heritage?
Yeah, it seemed very, very far away. I think the blessing for me was that I was able to study composition. So this gave me an opportunity to be able to bridge my cultural background with the music that I was studying. But definitely it was an experience which was very different. The musical experience, the whole approach was very different. But something that I still valued as an experience that I went through and was able to apply to much later in life as well.
And you actually came across the Kora in the library or something in that place. Tell us about that in the prestigious school in London.
So this was a gift actually because my elder brother had attended the same institution many years earlier to me, and he had gifted a Kora to the school when he graduated. And so years later, when I came to attend the same school, this was an instrument which I kept seeing as I was doing my studies. And this is actually what actually started to bring me back to the Kora, even though I was in an institution that was not encouraged. Obviously, the Kora was not something that was known anything about. But I started taking it to my room and spending time with it in the evenings. And then from there, this kind of quest to make sure that I came back to the Kora started to grow.
And when you were 17, you asked your dad, your father, who played the Kora, to teach you properly. And what did he say?
What was very significant was his willingness, of course, to teach me, and the fact that he did tell me that, yes, he wanted to now pass the tradition to me as his child rather than his daughter or his son. So he wanted to look at me rather as his child. And secondly, that he asked me, he said his challenge for me was to make sure that my dream, my goal was to be a good Kora player, not to be a good female Kora player, but just a good Kora player.
And you released your first Kora album in 2011, Fasiya. You reworked griot classics and it brought you international success. In 2015, you released a song to celebrate Gambian independence. It became the country's unofficial national anthem. It's had something like 24 million views on YouTube. Let's take a listen to that. Was your 2015 song Gambia. What sort of reaction did you get to that when you released it at home?
I think that's when things started to change for me a lot, both nationally and internationally. That's when I started to get that recognition as perhaps a new voice within the tradition, a new voice within the culture, but importantly, a female voice as well. So things, I think, in that sense, I saw a new opening, new beginning for myself.
And you have a new album out this year. It's called Bandina Kamu. While your first album was a mixture of traditional songs and new songs, your latest album is all original music that you've written, with lyrics about education, women, and your own identity. It's sung in the Mandinka language. Why is that important for you?
The language was important for me because of the fact that I wanted to demonstrate that it is possible to still hold and to gain international recognition utilizing your own languages. And this is something that has challenged me a lot. And I wanted to raise the question when we talk about language and when we think about culture and what language carries as identity and culture and so on. There's often the presumption that using languages such as English, French, and so on is the default. And in order to be successful on an international stage, a lot of Africans feel that they have to master those languages. And for me, this is about empowering people that your own languages are as valuable as any other language around the world. And it was always my dream from quite young, actually, once I was in university, that one day I was imagining being able to perform in France, in Germany or somewhere, and having a whole audience full of Germans or French people actually singing in Mandinka, because we see this a lot when we go to Africa. We see whole stadiums of people singing in English when that's not their language. What happens if we did it the other way around? What pride would that give to the people? And so this was my mission and why I love to demonstrate, and I'm so happy to succeed now in having, thousands of people who have never even set foot in Africa singing African language.
And what's it like in Paris then when you can hear, because you've already performed in Paris this year, and when the audience is singing back to you, what does that feel like?
It's like I achieved my dream, which is amazing. And for me, it's not just about my own personal happiness, but this is something that is extremely powerful for Africans, not just Mandinka speakers, but people who speak them. Actually, interestingly, not just Africans. This is applicable to so many people around the world who speak languages that they feel are, deemed as inferior to some of the dominant languages. So this is very empowering for a lot of people around the world to see that this is possible.
There has been more than a decade between your two albums, but you have been very busy. One of the reasons for this gap is because of your other passion, which is creating the template for a new African education system. That is a very big task in hand. In 2015, you founded the Gambia Academy. Now it teaches African languages, culture and history alongside mainstream subjects. Let's have a listen to some of the students at the school. See students there embracing African music, Gambian music. Why was it so important to you to create this school?
This was a direct challenge to the education system that is not just unique to Gambia, but actually to many countries in Africa. We have an education system which has its foundations, its very roots within the colonial system. And this is something that still has not been fully addressed from at its root. And so what I wanted to do was set an institution up to demonstrate what happens when you actually reinvent the education system that reflects the culture, the history, the identity, and the traditions of the people that it teaches. And this has a hugely empowering effect on students, because many places, I would say, that have education systems that work take that for granted, that you don't have students going to institutions and being exposed to foreign culture on a daily basis. And that starts to generate this question over self-worth, and it starts to generate that idea that you are inferior to other cultures. And it also, for me, I wanted to demonstrate that to be educated in mainstream education should be synonymous with being African and being proudly African and having that history and having those values and those cultures, rather than feeling that you must emulate being Europeanized in order to be educated. And so this is really what the school is about, and demonstrating what happens to the confidence of students.
So how's it going?
It's going amazingly, and this is where we start to see that, for me, rather than campaigning about what I think should happen, I want to just do it and then demonstrate it. And when you see the students performing, when you see the students, articulating themselves and carrying themselves in the way they think about themselves, I can really start to see this is the type of students and the type of children I would love to see for the next generation representation of Africans across the entire continent.
And how many students are there at the moment?
So this is a template model, so I'm keeping it very small, so it's under 40 students. We are soon now entering into our expansion mode, so our capacity will be 300. But what's important is this institution is a template. So this is an education system that I'm developing to be replicated in other institutions. So the Gambia Academy will not be a unique institution. I want to see this spread out in other schools.
Now, centuries ago, your ancestors, the griots, they resolved conflicts, they counselled kings, and they passed the legends down. They provided another voice in society, another viewpoint in kind of governments. That's a tradition that seems to have died out quite a long time ago. Do you think we need more cultural leaders?
Very much. And for me, this is what it means to be an artist. And on the new album, there's a song which I dedicated to this, which is actually talking about the responsibility that I feel that artists have to be ambassadors for cultural change, to be ambassadors for social change, to be ambassadors for positive change in society, and to understand that their position in society as is one of responsibility rather than privilege, and to make sure that they actually treat that with responsibility. So to be careful about what messages they spread and understand the impact that that has on the next generation.
Okay, well, Sona, you've got a lot going on. You've got a concert this week in Paris as part of the Afrocolor Festival, and some more dates around Europe, and then a US tour next year. You also did some music for the film Beast, starring Idris Elba. And what are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to taking time off. But apart from that, I'm looking forward to next year because we have a lot of exciting shows coming up, and mainly being able to actually put this album I've been working on for so many years on the road, which is a major thing for me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to do that, particularly in the US.
Okay, Sona Jobarteh, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sona will be at the Théâtre de Garde Chasse, just outside of Paris, as part of the Afrocolor Festival this week. That's if you're watching the show on Thursday. If you're watching online or over the weekend, you can check out Sona's website for future dates. The Afrocolor Festival is on until Christmas Eve in Paris. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bienvenue en Normandie.
Known for its world-famous beaches and monuments like a certain Mont Saint-Michel, the region of Normandy is also a gastronomical treasure trove.
There's an incredible variety of specialties and dishes that reflect the region's culture, history, and terroir.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this episode of French Connections Plus. So join us as we dive in and discover the region of Normandy.
French Connections Plus, presented by Jeannie Godula and Florence Villemino.